Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Waddie G with the G List Society. Thank you for checking out the blog all the time. And welcome to our new video chat interview series called the G Chat, where I will be talking with some of your favorite LGBT personalities, talk about the projects that they got coming up or going on right now, as well as picking their brain on certain topics that we like to talk about behind closed doors. And I have a very special guest. Everybody's a special guest, but this one's a very special guest because many of you know that I really support the independent musicians, especially in our community. But this one, I think he's so dope, so talented. I've been following him since his first single. I think that was in '99. I don't know if you remember when I met him in Atlanta during Black Pride Weekend when he was handing out those CD singles. And I was like, my baby daddy, I guess. But when I played it, it was the Bob. And so I've been following him ever since. His name is Anthony Antoine. What's up, Anthony?
What's up? It's so good to see you in that beautiful smile. What's up, baby?
Thank you. I'm doing great. The smile's for you because, I'm always excited to be chatting with you. And this is actually our first interview ever. So
this is our first interview, but we'll sit down and chat, and we catch up with each other online and in person. So right. This is good. When you hit me up and said you're doing this, I was like, I'm definitely down. I really appreciate it.
And much is appreciated that you decided to do this because again, what all I want to do is like provide a platform for people like you and talk about the contributions that you put into music. And I think you're one of the people that I say set the path as far as because right now we got a lot of great independent musicians in our community. But, I take it all the way back, like I said, to '99. I think you were probably the first independent out musician I've ever not just met but heard of. Because everybody else was like Sylvester, and I didn't even know who Sylvester was at that time because I was just a baby. But unless they were on like mainstream radio or TV and stuff, I never met or heard of the independent artists. And here you are, and so just want to say congratulations for still doing it. You know
what? I appreciate that, Waddie, because and it's funny because I'll read some of the articles that are in some of the more recent magazines, and they'll mention artists that they'll say that they're trailblazers in the out game, but they're in their 20s, and I'm like, that's not possible, right. Because
even though you're still in your 20s, but
I know I look like I'm still in my 20s, but I'm a little older. Right. And I mean, it's no disrespect, no shade to some of the new cats, but I'll just say there have been people that have been in the game, and I'm not alone. I mean, I appreciate you recognizing that, but we're in a different age now where you can know about who's out there and their, groups, Facebook groups, there's, social media that connects us all. But in '99, when I was first, put out my Dante's Got a Man project, it was few and far between. Like, I didn't know who else was out there doing it. It was just maybe one or two of us trying to, set the trail ablaze. And so I really appreciate that you remember that. And of course I remember, Waddie, how can you forget that smile? Look at it.
Shut up. But so, and that's why I wanted to congratulate you too. And I wanted to talk about that before we get into your new music. You brought up a great point about how media talks about the artists who've probably been out for like 4 or 5 years as the trailblazers, as the icons. I mean, I feel like we're in this day and age where you could get icon status or even legendary status and you haven't even been around 10 years.
Right.
Versus, couple of years ago or more, when it comes to pop music, Diana Ross is a legend. Now we're giving Beyonce legendary status, and she only been out 10 years as a solo artist. Or we'll give Rihanna icon status, and she's only been around for 5 or 6 years. And it's really interesting to me. But I say this as a person who really supports out music, and I would say not just out music, but out musicians in particular in the field or in the genres that I like, which is R&B and hip hop.
Sure.
that a lot of those sources that you mentioned that name the people who only been around a short time, I always say to people, consider the source. When I've seen, I interviewed Will Sheridan earlier, as well as DJ Baker, and we talked about those kinds of lists. And I said, well, I'm not talking about what Queerty says or Advocate says, or even, somebody as mainstream as Esquire says is who is the best in gay hip hop, or
Sure.
who are the trailblazers gay hip hop, because those are people who probably, one, don't listen to hip hop music, and two, could probably care less about gays in hip hop. They just know like who's hot in mainstream, like if they got a gay musician or they just happen to have a YouTube video that had 1,000,000 hits, then those are the trailblazers. But let's just say if it wasn't for the Zebra Cats or the Freaky Boys or or the Damian Crawford,
Or the G-List Society.
True, but I'm just saying, if there were no Anthony Antoine's, Tim and West, and oh my God, my Virgo guy from Minnesota, Tory Fix.
Tory Fix, one of my favorites.
Right. Then there would be no Damian Crawfords. There would be no Zebra Cats or Freaky Boys and all of those things. They're very great, but greatness has to come from greatness, So I say listen to people like me who could give you a bit better history of what our subgenre is all about. But with that said, I want to get to your new album, or your recent album, which is the London to Atlanta. I just thought that just sounded so, not just even worldwide and metropolitan, but just so sexy. It just sounds like a sexy mainstream title that for somebody who will put out the greatest hits.
It's funny because let me tell you about that. I actually had a different title for it, and I don't even remember what the different title was. But as I oftentimes do, I'll ride in the car and listen and try to put together a project and a concept. And I was riding with my friend, executive producer, and so much more in my life, and he was like, no, I'm not feeling that title. He was like, why don't you go with the idea of London to Atlanta, because it communicates your whole story. It communicates, you releasing music in London and you starting there, and then that transition into being an out artist, which really, even though 99 is when we met and I did Dante's Got a Man, my very first track I released as an out artist was Ain't Nothing But a Thing, which I recorded the first demo of that in 1998. And that was my conscious effort of, okay, now I'm going to be an out artist. Like, ultimately, I should be able to talk about who I am in my life, in my music. And from that point on, I moved with that. And so London to Atlanta just really communicated my story. I, started recording music in London in 87, and it took me all the way to 2013. I've been doing music now for 25 years, which is crazy.
That is crazy. Wow. So talk about your beginnings in London. And because actually, when I follow you up close intently on Facebook, and you drop a lot of your history that was news to me. How you guys, a lot of your beginnings done in London. Can you briefly talk about that? And
sure. Like, the thing I'll tell people is that I wanted to create a story from my life. Like Madonna. Like, Madonna was it back in 87. And I just remember her talking about her transition into New York and what that meant for her. And so everyone said the military or college. And those were the two things that I did not want to do. I just didn't want my story to be military or college. No shade to that, but it was just, for me, I just wanted to create a different story, and a story that I could look back on and always appreciate the lessons. And so for me, I moved to London at age 17. I was 17 when I graduated high school. And I moved to London literally for 6 years. I was there for 6 years. And for me, that was my start in music. That was my start in life. That was my college years. I was 17, ambitious, crazy, didn't think about how much money it would cost. I literally had the most money I had ever had in my life, probably about $1,500. But I got that in June when I graduated high school, and that's what I asked for, was money to go to London. I didn't leave for London until September. So from June to September, of course, a 17-year-old is going to spend $1,500. And by the time I took off, it was more like $1,000. And then I didn't consider the exchange rate. So the exchange rate knocked that to about 600. And I made that work for 6 years. So yeah, that was my start in London. And literally I left with the dream, the goal to make music. I wanted to make music while I was over there. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but that's what I did.
Isn't that amazing? Because I look at some of my own life experiences, and especially around that 17 to age 26 for me, those years. And I made some very gutsy moves, like moving to a whole nother city, one where I didn't even have family for a couple of
Sure.
cities. And I'm just wondering, wow, how did I really make it? And I didn't even have $1,500 in my pocket those times, or not even 1,000. I think it was just like one paycheck, and then I was gone.
You were gone. But
Yeah.
let me tell you how we made it. And it's funny because I think about those times a lot, because as much as I say, like, I thought I knew everything but knew very little about life. But what the 17-year-old me did know was I didn't have fear. I knew that I could fall, like, I always had my mom's house. I had unconditional love. I had my family. So I could always come home if things didn't work out. But I never thought about it not working out. I just went for it. I just dove in and made it happen. And I think I could learn from that 17-year-old. So, you skip to me now a little older, and I've had a fantasy for the last quite a few years to move to Brazil.
Woo!
But the 17-year-old me would have never sat on that fantasy for years. Exactly. What is that? Like, either you're going to do it or not, just do it. And that's what I can learn from my 17-year-old stuff. Like, I didn't think about not making it. Not making it wasn't an option. And the idea that I could do it, I just dove in. I just made it happen.
Yeah, you know what, and that's what it is. It was the fear, or lack of, or not having fear. Just go on and do it. You see it, and for me, like, I grew up and kept, if I was told no, I'm going to work my way around to a yes.
Exactly.
I may get a no right here, but I could work around that no and then get a yes elsewhere. And even like you said, just moving around, like, I was 32. Well, I was 33 when I made the move from Chicago to New York. And I remember everybody thought I was crazy because the decision was sudden. Mm-hmm. I was laid off from a job, and 2 days later, I said, I'm moving to New York. I'm doing it in 3 weeks.
Make it happen.
And I made it happen. And the only time I feared it was 2 days before moving. Because I either sold or got rid of all my furniture, put stuff in storage. I'm here in an empty apartment now, second to the last day there. And I remember just all of a sudden fear just threw itself on me, and I just like cried for about 5 to 10 minutes because I'm like, what in the hell did I just get myself into? But then I'm like, well, shit, I just sold everything.
It's done now. Let's go.
So let's go. Right.
Let's go.
And it was like, it was like the best 15 months of my life, or, some of the best 15 months of my life, because for what I could tell myself now is, some of the experience that I made there that I don't have to repeat. If there were lessons to be learned, I learned it there. And then even for the great things, it just taught me how to make things happen. So, and that's what I encourage everyone, because now that I'm just turned 37, I'm
still a baby.
Hey, as long as this stays a baby, I'm good.
Yes.
I could be 50, and if this is on point, hello.
Yes, get into it.
That's all I'm worried about, baby. That's all I'm worried about. But, I just tell people, I say, man, I've been sitting on the idea of moving back to New York for over a year now, and I need to get back to my 17 and 33-year-old self and say, look, make it happen, boy. But yeah, so you did London, and I thought, wow, that was just such an incredible experience.
Let me tell you something about London. So something about London that, and folks will see me post on Facebook or talk about it, but I literally, and thank God, and let me tell you something about performing in the age we're in now on social media. I am so happy that there were not cameras and camera phones and YouTubes back then, because there would be a video of me. I entered a talent competition, and with famed producer Paul Hardcastle, who has, you know, many hits in England. His hit 19 was a hit across the world, and he was a judge in the contest. And I literally sang Bobby Brown's My Prerogative in some biker shorts and a leather jacket.
Woo! Oh, yeah.
And the thing about that is I won the competition, and that's how I got to work with Paul Hardcastle and got my first single out. So there was the start of my music career in England. But thank God there's no video of that anywhere. Like, I'm so
come on.
If that were to ever surface, I think I would move to Bangladesh and just like climb under a rock.
Those were what? Those were what, the 80s or the 90s?
Those were the 80s, yes.
I mean, like, who didn't wear biker shorts?
Biker shorts, right. Wait, biker shorts and a leather jacket with this big, like, silver rim on it and my dark shades. Just knew I was something.
That was fly.
Knew I was something.
Though. That was fly. Like, I love biker shorts for all the wrong reasons. But
all the wrong reasons, baby.
Hey, they accentuated certain things.
Yes.
So
for the right reasons. How about that?
For the right reasons, right? For all the right reasons, baby. Bye. All right. So now that you, you've got your beginnings in London, and that's why, like, I'm glad we're talking about this in this interview, just because people can live through this, and then it's a great testament for other people to make these kinds of similar journeys. So you came back, or you came to the States. But, being Anthony Antoine, the independent singer, especially as an out musician, I mean, you started that in 98, 99. You put out an EP or a CD called Dante's Got a Man.
Dante's Got a Man, too. It's funny because everybody was, at the time, my favorite song was Shantae Moore's Shantae's Got a Man.
Right.
And so I was thinking, like, she's, it's kind of braggadocious, like, I got a man, what? You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, well, why can't we say the same thing? And so I thought that would be, like, the perfect, transition into being an out artist and being able to communicate what it is that I wanted to communicate in song. So I played off of one of my favorite artists, of course, Shantae Moore. And it was funny because I was hustling. I was out at all the clubs. I was performing. I was making sure everybody knew about my CD. I didn't have Facebook and, social media, YouTubes and stuff. Like, you had to get out and hustle.
Yes.
To get people to know, that you had a project out and to know who you are and to get the DJs to play it and that sort of thing. So that was my grind in 99. That was what I made happen.
How did you feel about the reception within the LGBT community, especially around people of color, as you were promoting your first works of music?
It's interesting, the support that we get as out artists now, because in 99, people told me that I was crazy. And there were people telling me, like, I really like your music, but, why don't you just not be out? Why don't you, not talk about sexuality? You would go further in life. And that's just a crazy concept to me. Like, somebody has to break down the walls. And then the other thing that I know about the music industry and being connected to different people, I've worked at record labels. I've worked at with promoters. I've worked behind the scenes in concerts. So I'm connected to the industry because of a few other things that I do. And so when you see the industry and see how many artists are in that industry that are gay or bisexual or freak, whatever it is.
All the above.
You get what I'm saying? So because I know that, I just thought that was ridiculous. But sadly, even from other, there were gay industry execs that I would meet, and I'm thinking, okay, finally, here's my chance. And they would be the main ones, like, shine upon an out gay artist, because then that would mean, what did that mean for them in the middle of a business meeting? Like, how do I go promote an out gay artist without that outing me? And that was the sad thing that I experienced along the way, that I got support and love from my community. But then when I would get in front of industry executives who were gay, that I'm thinking, okay, this is a way that, you know me as a person, my grind and my hustle, but would be afraid to take that to industry executives for their own fear, for their own homophobia, for their own, what did it say about them and their own sexuality. Experiencing that was really sad for me.
Well, and also, like, and I guess maybe you had a different experience than what I hear from most people, but I know especially those days, because even when I met you, and I said this in my intro, was that, you know, you're the first out artist that I met. And then when I saw, oh my God, he's now out and he's singing these kinds of songs, I'm like, you know, and that was my initial reaction until I actually heard it. Then I said,
Right.
oh, okay, this is cool. And I was one of those, I'm like, well, how is that going to work? You know, blah, 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 blah. But then as I got to meet more people, I started to become much more open-minded. But have you ran into a lot of those kind of people within the community when you first started, or even still?
I ran into a lot of those people, and less as time moves on.
Okay.
But for me, and why I keep doing the music that I do, so, you know, for every person that I ran into who was like, you know, this isn't going to work, or why are you doing this? Then I would run into people who would like stop me and say, oh my God, I bought your Closets on Fire CD and I got it. Like, you were telling my story about coming out. You were telling my story about falling in love with a man. And so when I get that, I know I'm on the right path. So it's one of those things where I don't even focus on the haters or the people that say no. Like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Good.
And now being who I am now and older and able to, you know, so I just told a friend the other day, like, it feels different when I was waiting for somebody to green light my project.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to wait for anybody to green light my project anymore. Like, I can green light my own project. I want to do a CD, I can do it. I wanted to do London to Atlanta, and literally it was a conversation I had with my friend, and we were talking, and so it was the potential to go to Honduras, which is a place I've always wanted to go, and I was making plans to go to Honduras, but I was also in the middle of just recording to keep myself busy and sane. And literally, I said one day, you know what? I'm not going to go to Honduras. I'm going to take that money that I was going to use for that, and I'm going to put out London to Atlanta, because I feel like I'm in the middle of a CD. And I started realizing I was in, you know, coming up on 25 years of being in the music business. So September of 2013 was 25 years for me. And so I was like, that should be celebrated. And so I just made that happen. And it was just time to do it. And so I just feel good to be at an age where I'm older, I'm wiser, I still have something to say musically, and I can green light my own projects.
And I agree with you, because I have to say with this album, if I may say, this is like some of your best work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
that. Because I could see, like, you know, one thing about your music from 98 up until now, I always say that you're one of the people who, I don't know if you purposely do this, but you notice like what is relevant as far as communications and topics, whether it's in our own society or the society around us. And for some reason, I feel like you build your music around that. I don't know if it's done purposely, but that's what it just seems like to me. It's always on time, it's relevant, and those things, especially with the singles that you released on London to Atlanta. And I really wanted to talk about those because, you know, I just enjoyed, you know, pumping those singles up. The videos, I mean, were beautiful. I mean, they all had messages, even if it was the scandalous one, and what was it, for Secret Lover?
Secret Lover. And
Knock, knock, tap, tap, and ain't nothing but a thing where you celebrated love. First of all, what inspired you to do the tracks for this album, and why these three singles in particular?
It's I always, once I decided to do London to Atlanta, and that was going to be a project, and then I started thinking about, well, what idea has sat in my head the longest? And Secret Lover, that would have been the video that if I could have afforded to make it, or at a time where I was waiting for folks to greenlight my project, Secret Lover was the song and the video that I wanted to do. And so I thought no better video could lead off this project than that particular song and video. Oftentimes people would say Secret Lover was, you know, people that know my music would say, oh my God, Secret Lover is your song, like that's a hit, which is really strange for me because I can do hip hop, I love to rap, I do spoken word, I love to sing, but, you know, singing I'm just a little more, you know, reserved or shy about. And so thinking about Secret Lover, people would say, yeah, that's your best track. You got to do a video for it. You got to do a video for it. And I would always respond that that video has lived in my head for literally 10 years. Wow. And so being able to pull it out of me and being able to get it out, it just meant everything to me. And if I did no other video for this project, that was the one. And so the love I've received for the video, I mean, the turn at the end of the video, this is real. This is what we live. This is our lives.
Yeah, this is real stuff.
This is real stuff.
And then let's see, Knock Knock, Tap Tap, and then Ain't Nothing But a Thing. I mean, those really, those singles took lives of their own too, especially with the visuals that went with them. Because which one had like all the couples at the end? Was that
Knock Knock, Tap Tap?
Let's talk about that one because that blew me away. Like the video was great. It was beautiful. You and your the guy that you were interested in your video, how that storyline played out. And I said, oh, okay, very nice. Here's the end. And then you carried on by this dedication of certain people in our community that are partners. And I was like, I don't know if I should break out a Kleenex box or something. What made you incorporate that into your music video? Talk about the music video too.
Sure.
And the response that you got.
The 3 videos I did for London to Atlanta, I've always wanted to work with a guy named Deshae West, and he has projects on YouTube, and he's very, very good, very talented young man. And I reached out to him, and a year later we ended up working together. It fell right in line with this project. So all 3 of the videos, Secret Lover, Ain't Nothing But a Thing, and Knock Knock Tap Tap, all directed by Deshae West. And I had a concept, but then he was able to make it look good, and we worked together to make it happen. And for me, Knock Knock Tap Tap is the newest song, the last song I did for the project. And I was like, okay, my project is done. Like, I let a few folks hear, and they were like, oh my God, that song is sexy, it's R&B, it's romantic. And so I was like, the video had to add to that. And then, thinking about who I am as a person, to know who I know in the community. A lot of times you'll hear people say that there are no, gay couples, or they don't last, and in my personal life, especially in Atlanta, and you'll hear all of those things. And I'm like, in my life, I know couples. So I know people who are committed, who are together, who are down for the long haul. And so I wanted to be able to promote that. And so, sure, like you said, I thought the video was romantic and it looked good. But then I also wanted to tie it up with a bow. I wanted it to make the point that, if you say that there are no couples, come on, here are examples right before you. So open up your eyes. And that's what I wanted to say with that video.
I have to say it again and again. It was beautiful.
Thank you so much.
To end. So, have you been taking the project on the road to perform, or how's that coming along?
It's funny because I have a good friend that's like, well, when can I come see you perform? I was like, well, you missed it for this project because I did 2 sets January, earlier this year. And for me, it's really hard because the 3 singles are all singing. Like I said, I went on the road with my poetry group, Adobe Muse. We do spoken word. We were performing all the time. I've done a few sets by myself. When I know people, it's hard for me to sing in front of people and be comfortable. So I get real get shy about it or something. I mean, I can do it, and I'll do it around folks all the time. They well, we get to hear you singing at card parties. That's different.
Right.
That's different. I'm chilling, but to go do a show, it's I've been in front of one of my favorite artists, B Slade.
Oh my God!
Come on. I've been 2 feet in front of B Slade, hearing him just swap for it, just go off. I've been a second away from Shantae Moore when she hitting the high notes. Come on now, those are the singers. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, and I mean, oh God, B Slade was one per artist, kind of similar to you when he made the switch from gospel to independent. I hate saying it secular, but
yeah,
independent. And I know, I heard everybody raving about it. I even heard you raving about his music. I was like, I don't know. I wasn't trying to even give it a chance at first, just because I'm like, I was like, because in gospel, he was that eccentric gospel guy. And I listen to gospel music, but I'm not really into gospel music. So I felt like, it might be the same thing once he crosses over to independent music. And I said, Waddie, okay, you claim to be this music junkie. You're not giving this guy a fair chance. So just hear a CD, and then make your opinions from there. I was blown away, like from song one.
B
And
Slade is the truth in music. He is everything. He, as I oftentimes say, he's the artist I waited to finally come out. Like in gospel, I was following him and he was good to me then. But B Slade just transitioned. I mean, it took it to a whole nother level for me.
uh-huh.
And I love, like, I scrambled to collect everything that he's put out. And I probably don't have it all. Like, I have hundreds of songs on my iTunes and probably don't even have it all because he puts out that much music. Like, you have to, I think he should be studied.
He should be studied, and like not only he put out so much music, because there's one thing about putting out so much music, and it, you can never tell whether you're going to get a hit or a miss.
Yeah.
His music, I may not be a fan of every single song, but I tell you, the great majority of them, I love it, and then there's some that I like. But the one thing, like you said, that reason why people need to study his music is he's probably the only artist, because I know he writes, produces, as well as
He does it all. He does it all.
I hear every different genre, and it's not like B Slade trying to do a reggae tune or B Slade trying
No,
to
he's
rap.
doing it.
He does
He's
it.
doing it.
I mean, it's crazy his talent, because I was telling somebody before, I said if B Slade went to secular music instead of gospel music, people will already see the second coming of Michael Jackson.
Like, it's crazy. He's crazy.
It's crazy.
And not only that, let me tell you the thing about B Slade. I went to, this was in 2011, I went to his listening party in New York. And then a month or two later, I just, dropped an idea by his management and just said, what would it look like to host him in Atlanta? I mean, I know a few people, I can get a set and I can make it happen. And I was able to host him here. So not only is he that damn talented and can produce and write and play and do all of that, but he's a nice guy too.
Oh,
Like what? You know what I'm saying? So all of that is in the package. Like somebody that talented. It's funny because I tell my crazy life. I had an opportunity one time to work backstage at a concert, and I was assigned to Jennifer Hudson's. I was assigned to Jennifer Holliday's dressing room, and so that's Jennifer Holliday. Like you can do whatever. Like, girl, you can look down your nose at me if you need me to get your bath water. Like, you're Jennifer Holliday. Like, you can do whatever. And so, like, for me, working with the one time I had an opportunity to work with B Slade, he could have come in there like shady, and I still would have been okay with it because you're genius. Like, you're that damn talented. But he was nice, personable. He was dancing and enjoying himself and just a nice guy. So I really like him.
I do too. And even as a performer, like, I saw him in Chicago, I think it was last year or maybe late 2011. I can't remember. But the one thing what made me so impressed about him is we were at a small venue, Reggie's Rock Club, on the main floor, and he wasn't even on the stage. He was level with everyone else, but he performed as if he was on a stage like 10 times bigger.
Of course.
I mean, he danced, he belted. I mean, he battled with his background singers. I mean, they was getting, and I only had one day to practice with him. They was in on it too. I mean, this is what I'm just really proud of for all of you all. With that said, because he's another person that, like you, I don't see mentioned in, the mainstream gay and the mainstream periodicals and stuff like that. For people like you guys who've been around this long, but the New Jacks are getting like all the praise and the glory or being the leaders, does that make you feel some sort of way, or does that validate? Do you feel like it validates what you've done? How do you feel about that?
I feel two ways about it. It's interesting because I've been asked that question by some of the other, folks that know me and know my work. So one side of it is, I just want to see it happen. The ceiling has to be broken. Somebody has to do it. Many of us have to do it. Like, and if you believe you're, knocking down the door, breaking down the door, like somebody put a crack in that ceiling before you did. And I love it when there are people who can honor the history that there was a Timum and, Deep Dick Collective and, Johnny Dangerous, and there was, Deadly. There were so many of us that were, rocking and making it happen before the new cats came along. And there are some people who give respect to that. So for me, I mostly just want to see it happen. There has to be like, it doesn't even need to be gay hip hop anymore. It's hip hop. That's what hip hop is. Like, it's cute you put that queer or gay tag on it, but the truth is, it's just hip hop. That's what it is. Like, it's enough of us doing it now that it's not even a novelty anymore. Like, ultimately, this is what we do. So, yeah, I'm mostly focused on that. I mostly think it's a good thing that is going to happen.
I'm glad you addressed it in that way, because the question I also had for you was, how do you feel about the term queer hip hop, gay hip hop being labeled as a genre of music? And I have to agree with you. For me, I see it as hip hop music done by gay people, but it was someone else I interviewed. I think it was DJ Baker. I had to agree with what he said too. Was he says, like how you mentioned how gay hip hop is usually labeled as if it's a novelty act or something, or something
Exactly.
That's trendy. And I agree with that, just because I would label that for some artists. Where I feel like maybe they don't take it as seriously, or they just, and I mean, because this is what impresses me about people like you and Chaos and B Slade and Tim and West, is that, especially when I met you, it started off with you when you're this guy who's at Atlanta Black Pride Weekend, and you give me the CD single, My Baby's Daddy, that Dante's Got a Man, and I'm thinking, I just hope this does not sound campy gay.
Right.
Everything that I expect a gay guy to sing. Like, if you're gonna sing, I want you to, fit in right in with the Luthers, the Ushers, and
you gotta be able to sing. You gotta be able to bring.
Right. You just happen to be gay, right? You're talented. You just happen to be gay and out the closet, because we got the talented people in mainstream who are gay, but they're not out the closet. I just want you to be like, hey, one of them, you just happen to be out of the closet. And that's what impressed me about folks like you, because even to this day, when I meet newer artists and get their music, I'm just like, look, I don't want to hear gay. I see it.
Right.
I mean, it's in the lyrics, but talent-wise, visual-wise,
you still got to bring it.
Right, because at the same when that happens, I feel like not only we don't get respect from the outsiders of people outside of our community, but we definitely won't get respect within, because it's funny how, and I don't really say this out publicly, but I did recently, where, a lot of people thank me privately for expressing my own truths, and, not being afraid or ashamed of like who will judge or who will listen or what others got to say, period. I just express my thoughts, and it is what it is. Especially when people, talk about what I like, as far as what's done in the LGBT community. And for me, I wish people took my advice even more when it comes to the hip hop and the R&B musicians in our community. And I say this now, and I hope many people check this interview out, and because we're almost towards the end, so I hope they see it all the way to the end, that I hear people coming to me in the community saying, where are the talented musicians? Where's their music? I don't know who's what. I'm so tired of hearing what I hear on the radio or what I read on the mainstream blogs. Well, let me tell you, LGBT community, especially people of color, you see one right here, Anthony Antoine.
Well, thank you.
I mentioned many more on my website. Start supporting them, because it's very interesting. We talk about not supporting one another, but the minute I post a controversial post on my blog, everybody reads it.
Wow. And that's the age we're in now. And see, I'm so glad you said that, because that is the age we're in social media. It seems like everybody wants to hear the cattiness, or you throwing a dagger, or even you just speaking the truth about something, and that will draw all of the attention. But here it is, you want to support these good news stories, or, somebody positive doing uplifting stories, and then where's everybody? Everybody goes.
Yeah, and then the ones who complain, the ones who are not supporting, because, like, I'm going to tell you, that's what frustrates me about our community is, I'm not saying you have to read every single post on our site, but, because it was one guy I remembered who was so upset with me because I talked about a recent situation with Inferno DR, like, and then another one a couple of months ago about a ballroom scene fight or whatever. And I said, well, those stories are like a month or two apart. Did you read the stuff in between when so-and-so, right, so-and-so had a music video? Because I look at the stats. And
what's happening?
And I will still push out the musicians, but it disappoints me when we talk about supporting each other. And I don't put out any musician. I get a lot of stuff. Now, there's a lot of stuff I don't get to put out that I like, just because of timing and laziness. But that's the first time I admit to being lazy.
Come on.
But
and you're still producing more than many, so that's all good.
I appreciate that. And with that said, when I put out your music and Damian Crawford's music, Timmy West's, and everybody else's music, I'm telling y'all, I want you to check these out too, because it gets uploaded to the same Facebook groups as the Scandalous stuff does. And so it's kind of like, gosh, a catch-22 when I want to provide this platform for you all, and instead I'll get a little traction on it, but then if I say something scandalous and if I got my own inside dirt about it, woo, it's like,
it'll go off the charts.
Right.
Let me tell you this. My thing about that is stay the course. Okay. Like, I really believe that ultimately as an artist, I'm called to do the work that I do as an artist. So I'm going to stay the course. It could be 5 people buying it or 5,000. And that's the other thing about like the work as well. So like when you do the math, I'm sitting on the other side of a better deal not being signed to a record label. If it costs me $2,000 to produce 500 CDs, I sell 200 of them at $10. You do the math. Yep. So when I hit the CD 201, I'm in a profit. You get what I'm saying? And then we're not talking about digital downloads and where it goes from there. So like ultimately, I'm just like staying the course and doing the work. And I still give feedback and love. Like for example, when I released Ain't Nothing But A Thing video, you were one of the first people that reached out and said, I am dancing at my computer right now. You gave me love. And so we have to think about that on the other side as artists, that when I pass you my CD, I still get it, still to this day. Oh my God, it's a real CD. Like, what you think I was going to pass you? Some made in my house, some crappers? Like, no, you got to think about artwork. You got to think about packaging. You got to think about who's mastering your project, all of that. And so you got to think about the videos you produce. Sure, many of us, we have cameras and can make videos at home, but invest in your product. And
invest. That's the key word, invest. I had a conversation with someone else in another interview. When you invest, that means you have to spend money on yourself.
You got to make a sacrifice here. Like maybe I won't go to Bulldogs and drink every other Saturday night. I'm going to put that little bit of money aside and we're going to gangsta make our video. I'm going to make it one way or another, somehow.
Of course. You know what? I mean, I'm glad I'm having this interview with you.
Look, we can talk for hours. This is my thing. I just want to be invited back to talk again. So you let me know when and where, and I'm there. You know that.
Definitely. We're going to do this because you're one of the first people for the series. So, of course, you got to come back, maybe be a family member of this.